It's so interesting. I don't know if you were familiar with what the New York Times' Shane Goldmacher reported earlier this week. And he talked about, he compared all the counties in the United States over the election years 2012, 16, 2020, 2024, and the extraordinary movement of the Latino community, Latino voters, into Donald Trump's camp, away from what they called part of the Obama coalition in 2012, part of what got Obama elected, I'm sure, in 2008, but then again the second election when he was reelected in 2012. And yet, the Trump administration is targeting those that they call illegals, a phrase that we do not use here on MSNBC.
Right.
This is about enforcing the law, and again, we're not going to apologize for doing it. We're stepping up. She says they're going to mobilize. Well, guess what? We're already ahead of the game. We're already mobilizing. We're going to bring National Guard in tonight.
They're coming out. They're coming out. They're coming out. Watch out! Fuck you!
You told me you got caught up in the tear gas as well. Describe what happened to you.
Oh, just tasted a little tear gas. Tasted like fascism.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So as we talked about yesterday, I told you guys that the Summer of Love Part 2, the Summer of Love 2.0 is back. It is here. 2025. It seems like it's going to be the summer of chaos in these liberal cities across the country over the mass deportations that are currently happening, the ICE raids that are happening across these liberal cities, these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary states, these blue states that refuse to cooperate with ICE and law enforcement when it comes to the deportations, okay? These cities are effing around and they're now finding out, okay? And it seems like Los Angeles is ground zero for the start of the mass riots. Again, riots that are eerily similar to the riots that we saw during 2020, okay? I guess this time they call themselves, I don't know, illegal lives matter, right? I'm not sure exactly what they call it. Latino lives matter, Mexican lives matter. I'm not sure exactly what they're calling themselves, okay? But again, the lunatics are out in full force, right? They're causing chaos, destruction, violence, vandalism. They are looting stores. They're as violent as we saw in 2020. And because of that, the president has deployed the National Guard to shut down these riots, okay? And of course, the mainstream liberal media, they are freaking out. CNN, they're freaking out. MSNBC, they're freaking out, claiming that these protests are so peaceful. These are just peaceful protesters, and Trump is using the National Guard, the military, on peaceful people of color who are just peacefully protesting, right? That the narrative is already starting. The reality denialism is already starting. Take a look.
Let's get to Lauren Posen, who is down there. Lauren, what are you seeing and hearing? It's looking like things are getting chaotic.
A large crowd of law enforcement come out.
We have, oh my God, we have tear gas. We have fireworks going off. Tear gas is in the air. People are dispersing. I can't see anything. I'm sorry, I can't see anything.
Lauren, back up if you can. We want you to be safe first and foremost. So, Lauren, please.
That scoop right here. Look, oh man, that one in there looting, bro. Looters, bro. Straight loot. Look at this. That's so sad. What is this? Look at this. Oh my god. I can't. You want to risk me getting stabbed or something?
Demonstrations had been going on right outside the Federal Detention Center. Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by honking their horns. And again, they were expressing their anger about the detention of so many immigrants at the Federal Center. Most of the evening, the federal agents stayed inside the building, but at a certain point, some of the demonstrators got very close to the property. In fact, some of them went onto the property, started tagging the building, started banging on fences. And shortly after all that happened, the agents started firing off tear gas, and then they came.
And I remember 1992 very well, that one of the worst things you can do is have an extreme presence of law enforcement that gets everybody agitated and the violence actually escalates.
We agree that if you're being violent, you should be arrested. You should be prosecuted. There is no disagreement on that. I think that's an effort that we can all say. But this is not what's happening. We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting. And we know that California law enforcement, local law enforcement, they're there to protect the public. They're there to protect and have public safety. And that's what they're there to do. Now, when people turn on law enforcement is when you get that response. So we want to make sure that people continue to speak up, that people show up, but that people are peaceful about the situation, and that's what we're continuing to tell people.
Important to remember that these large-scale protests downtown and in Paramount did not happen until ICE agents began conducting arrests in courthouses, when people were doing their immigration hearing check-ins, and in other workplace raids. And these are the types of actions that are not going after serious, dangerous criminals or drug traffickers. They're targeting just everyday folks who have been here, most of them a long time, who are undocumented. So it doesn't surprise me that there's this pushback from the communities when they feel that their schools, even their hospitals, the courthouses are not safe. And they're concerned about friends, family, loved ones who may be undocumented. And now my sense, I'll tell you now, this is just based on speaking with my relatives in Los Angeles. My sense is that many of the people we see in the streets protesting, they are not actually undocumented, because I'll tell you, undocumented people live a very precarious life. They do their best to stay away from law enforcement. So my sense is this is really a community movement stepping forth just in anger and frustration at the pace and the intensity of these attempts at mass deportations and the ICE raids.
What Trump did yesterday is not typical and quite extreme given the circumstances on the street. Even though there was unrest, that's why police departments exist. When a president federalizes under Title X, the National Guard, he puts them under his authority to be deployed without knowledge of what the rules of engagement are, what the mission is, how are they going to work with locals, and does have the risk of heightening tensions rather than de-escalating. In law enforcement, you want to de-escalate the tensions, arrest those who have committed crimes, permit First Amendment protest, which is allowed.
The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings, who are trying to abide by the law. He's arresting them. And you see this in communities that are Republican, Trump supporters, being outraged that he's raiding kitchens and arresting people, high schools, and arresting people who are not what he said he would do, which is focus law enforcement resources on violent criminals and people that are a danger to other Americans.
Yeah, so you see now, you hear that. Now, I want you guys to understand the logic of the Democrats here, right, in the mainstream level media, because according to them, these riots are mostly peaceful, right? But if they're not peaceful, it's the fault of the Trump administration, right? It's the fault of ICE. It's the fault of the National Guard. It's not the fault of the rioters and the lunatics and the agents of chaos and the vandalizers and the looters and all of these people who, again, are committing acts of violence, right? It's not their fault, right? It's not their fault, okay? No. It's the fault of the federal government for trying to enforce federal law, okay? When the federal government gave these cities the opportunity to cooperate, but they chose not to, right? And because they chose not to, now ICE has to go into these neighborhoods and conduct the mass deportations, right? We gave them an opportunity to cooperate, and they said no, okay? They said no. So with that being said, the Trump administration, again, they had to deploy the National Guard, and now they're saying, listen, that's not all. We can up this, and we can deploy the Marines as well, okay? In fact, this is what Pete Hegseth said on X. He says, the violent mob assaults on ICE and federal law enforcement are designed to prevent the removal of criminal illegal aliens from our soil, a dangerous invasion facilitated by criminal cartels, aka foreign terrorist organizations, and a huge national security risk. Under President Trump, violence and destruction against federal agents and federal facilities will not be tolerated. It's common sense. The Department of Defense is mobilizing the National Guard immediately to support federal law enforcement in Los Angeles. And if violence continues, active duty Marines at Camp Pendleton will be mobilized. They are on high alert. Yeah, again, this is F around and find out. This is F around and find out. This is what we're talking about. This is what I was talking about yesterday. I was like, no, we have learned from the summer of love, right? We've learned we're not going to let these people destroy our cities, right? We're not going to let these people loot, vandalize, set things on fire, attack federal law enforcement. We are not going to stand for this time around. We're not going to have the same thing happen that happened 4 years ago. We're not going to let it happen again. It's not going to happen in this country, okay? So, again, they have been warned. These people have been warned, and they didn't listen. So now they're finding out. Gavin Newsom responded and said the Secretary of Defense is now threatening to deploy active duty Marines on American soil against its own citizens. This is deranged behavior, right? So again, they're in full-blown panic mode, but they asked for it, right? Hegseth responded. He says deranged equal allowing your city to burn and law enforcement to be attacked. There is plenty of room for peaceful protests, but zero tolerance for attacking federal agents who are doing their job. The National Guard and Marines, if need be, stand with ICE. Facts. And see, here's the thing, right? This time around, we don't have to worry about the military being overly woke, right? Because military recruitment is basically skyrocketing, okay? And the people who are joining the military are not going to be people who are going to be against doing what they got to do in order to defend this country from what is domestic terrorism, right? What clearly, obviously, are, again, people who have staged an insurrection against this country, right? You have people running around waving foreign flags, okay? Foreign flags while attacking federal law enforcement. If that's not an insurrection, I don't know what else to call it, right? Nothing is an insurrection if that's not an insurrection, okay? They're waving foreign flags while attacking federal law enforcement. That is an insurrection. So with that being said, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about the conditions on the ground as of this morning.
Tensions remain high in Los Angeles this morning after protesters clashed with authorities overnight. With more on the current situation now that guard troops are on the ground. With us is KTLA reporter Jennifer McGraw. Jennifer, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. What else are you learning about the troop deployment? Can you describe what you're seeing on the ground right now?
Hi, Hannah. Good morning. You know, it's one thing to see a heavy law enforcement presence, but we are seeing hundreds of military members being driven in and being packed into this federal building. We can't zoom in too much because there is profanity all over the building, but we are seeing troops here on the ground. The Trump administration taking these raids seriously, making sure federal agents aren't protected, because here's the deal. Police and deputies aren't here to help assist in the raids, but they are here to help keep our community safe. With another day of violent clashes between protesters and law enforcement, the Trump administration is sending 2,000 National Guards to downtown Los Angeles, many arriving here this morning starting at 4 a.m. The last time the California National Guard was deployed to Los Angeles was back in 2020 following the death of George Floyd as protesters took over the city. Now, protesters, again, out here today. They plan to come out here today. They were here last night. Let's take a listen.
We're here to be peaceful. We're here to speak up against the injustices we're seeing in the world, and that's why we're here.
I witnessed most of the protesters being pretty peaceful, being pretty active, being in support of people unlawfully being detained.
Hannah, back to you.
Jennifer, I am curious, what are people on the ground saying as the city gets ready for the possibility of more protests today and more clashes between police and protesters?
You know, we're already seeing social media posts and circulating on Instagram and Facebook and et cetera, saying that they will be out here again starting at 2. But, you know, I've been a part of this for a long time now with multiple protests going on throughout the city since 2020, and they do plan on coming. So that may start even earlier this morning, but the National Guard is here and they are taking these threats seriously. Now, I also want to tell you that we spoke with U.S. Attorney earlier today, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, the only terrorists I see are the ones who are throwing Molotov cocktails at our federal agents, the ones throwing rocks at them, the ones attacking our officers, the ones impeding them. They are the ones who are lawless. Our officers are following the law. We are enforcing the law as written by Congress. We are executing warrants signed by federal judges. We're doing our job, and we're doing the task that the American people voted for in November.
As more raids were carried out in the city of Paramount yesterday, tensions between city, state, and federal leaders escalating. Governor Newsom and President Trump trading statements on social media about the National Guard being deployed. Trump saying that if local law enforcement won't provide protection, then the federal government will step in. Newsom, however, saying the guards are not being deployed because there is a shortage of law enforcement, but because the administration wants to cause a spectacle. Hannah?
Jennifer McGraw, live on the ground in Los Angeles for us this morning. Thank you so much for that report, Jennifer.
So you seen that, you heard that. The lunatics are going to come back out apparently later today. They haven't learned their lesson, right? And again, one of the reasons why is because there's not enough arrests being made, right? I mean, they need to start making mass arrests. Mass arrests need to be made, okay? And these people need to be punished to the fullest extent of the law, right? That's what needs to happen, okay? That's what needs to happen. As long as these people aren't being punished, as long as they're allowed to do this, you're going to keep seeing it. At some point, these people have to be arrested and thrown in jail, right? Thrown in prison. That's what has to happen. That's the next step. But here we are, guys. And here's the thing. I think that this is, again, ground zero. I think that this is going to spread across the country. I think you're going to see this in Chicago. I think you're going to see it in Seattle. I think you're going to see it in Portland. I think you're going to see it in all these liberal cities across the country. Because now that you're seeing this in Los Angeles, the lunatics they're emboldened, right? They're now emboldened, and you're going to see this start to happen across these liberal cities, across the whole country, okay? And it's probably going to be something that's going to be happening for the whole summer. These people are not in school. They're back homes in their liberal cities, right? They're bored. They ain't got nothing to do, right? So now this is what is going to happen, right? Again, it seems like a repeat, but we can't have what happened in 2020 happen again. No, we cannot have that happen again. We have to shut down these riots. And I'm glad that the Trump administration is starting early, okay? He's sending a warning. He's letting these people know that we're not going to tolerate this. And, you know, it really is one of these situations where it was bound to happen, and now it's happening, right? This is what these liberal cities asked for. And you can't blame anybody except the Democrats. We gave them an opportunity to cooperate. They didn't want to cooperate. So, hey, they're finding out. They're finding out. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.